Hello. Can you see me? We're going to start in just a couple of seconds. I just want to make sure everybody is able to get on. Hello. Can you see me?
I want to turn this on.
You got the sound off, Bruce? Anyway, I have a full crew here today helping me out. I have my 16-year-old daughter, Evelyn, behind the camera. She's waving. And I have my son, Bruce Jr. here today. Hey, Bruce, come here. So, Bruce is going to be reading the questions to me today as they come through. I will also have many of my coworkers, the educators from Janome America, answering questions. But this is a special day for Bruce because he just graduated from elementary school, moving on up to middle school. My baby's growing up. So anyway, Bruce is reading the questions to us. But don't worry, as we go through this class today, anything that you missed or you have questions on that don't get answered, two things will happen for you. One, this video will be for you on the Janome sewing machine page, so you can watch it from the beginning later on. Also, when the class is over, I'll make sure to read through all the questions and answer any of those questions that don't get answered during the course of today's live. So, I think we have people joining us. I didn't introduce myself. I am Regena Carlavaro. I work at Janome America with an amazing team of educators, many that you have been viewing, watching, and sharing their sewing space with for the last couple of months since the beginning of the pandemic that has started. So we have a silver lining that has occurred during a bad thing. We've been able to invite you into our lives and into our sewing rooms, and it's been wonderful. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do, thumbs up, little hearts out there. And I want you to know that we will keep doing this. Even when we're back in the office and our educators are traveling again and they're out there and teaching at shows and in classrooms and dealer stores, we'll still be doing lives for you because we found that this was an amazing experience for all of us. So I just want to let you know we're not going to give up. We're going to keep doing it. Maybe not as regularly, maybe on Monday through Friday, because everybody will be traveling eventually. But we will continue to do these lives for you and these classrooms for you. Okay? So today we are going to be making the summertime Serger Placemats. If you didn't already download the directions, don't worry, you'll be able to have access to these after. You can find these on the Janome Sewing Machines classroom page under the, I'm trying to think where they're at, I think under the events tab. So you can find those and print these out. So because we only have a little under an hour, because our next class with Mitzi Red today is at 3 p.m., I have step out. So we're not going to do every step on live, so I'll just show you some of the things that I did to get to the next step. So don't worry about trying to keep up. If you are sewing along, ask your questions, we'll stop, we'll answer them, so no worries about that, okay? All right, so my favorite thing about sergers, and how many of you out there have sergers? If you have a serger, give me a thumbs up, all right? Do you see any thumbs ups? There's a little delay. There's a little delay. How many of you love your sergers? If you love your sergers, I need some hearts, because I love my serger. If you haven't made friends with your serger, and I know some of you haven't, my son's showing me some thumbs ups. Ooh, lots of thumbs up, that's great. All right, awesome. If you haven't made friends with your serger, don't send me any frowny emojis. I don't want to see those, all right? I want you to become friends with your serger. And I find that like with people I've met in my life who at first I didn't quite get, once I understood where they were coming from and understood what, what made them tick, no problem. I got over those humps and we became really good friends. So I want you to become friends with your serger. So I see a lot of hearts my son's showing me. So one of the things that I love about a serger is a rolled edge. So traditionally, most people, you're going to use a rolled edge on napkins, scarf edges, different, things that you want to really find. If you do a white on white, it's beautiful for like wedding veils, those really, really delicate finishes. People like to use this for ribbon making, and they'll actually string wire through it and make their own ribbon. So there's some really, really cool applications. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to, I believe there's no way an iPad camera can zoom in on this, but one of these sides I used regular thread, just 3 spools of regular thread, and the secondary side I used woolly nylon. So my daughter's telling me I have to lift it, lower it. Okay, there we go. So I don't know if you can see that. Is that getting blurry?
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good? All right. So one side is more filled in. That is using a woolly nylon thread. There's also woolly poly out there. There's different versions of it that I love. And what that does is after you sew, it poofs up and it fills in the rolled edge. So it makes a really beautiful soft edge, and it makes it really, so especially when you're doing a contrast, you can really see it really well. So that's a traditional application for a rolled edge. So recently, a couple years ago, I guess it wasn't recent, I was at the Houston Quilt Show, and it was raining. I wasn't prepared, and there was this wonderful kiosk of really beautiful clothing. There was a raincoat. It was gorgeous, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm buying that raincoat because it's raining." I didn't even ask how much it was. So later on, I went and I looked at my credit card slip. I went, "Oh my gosh, my husband's going to kill me." I won't even tell you how much I paid for it. But later on, I was looking at it, and it was reversible. And as I was looking at it, one of the things I loved about it was the piping on it. I was on the sleeves, on the yoke, and on the edge, and I was like, "Oh, I love piping." So I'm looking at it and realized it wasn't piping; it was a rolled edge. So the jacket was worth every penny I paid for it because it inspired me. So one of the things I really love to do with a rolled edge is make piping with it for my garments and my projects. So, for instance, I made this a while back. So as you can see, this beautiful accent. Oh, my son said someone's asking a question. Okay, speak up.
Can you tell me what needles I need to use in my Janome air thread? I've been told different suggestions.
So right on the front of the machine, it says it has the HASP, I believe, on it. But I will definitely get that exact, the number of that needle for you so that you can go find that at your authorized dealer. I'll get that exact thing. So I'll look that up and I'll answer that post later. Some of the educators might be on and they could also answer that. But there is a sticker right on the front of your machine, and that's your best guideline, okay? And there's 11s, there's 14s, so depending on the thickness of the fabric, you know, I change. So like for the project today, we're going to use a size 11. But for this project, I use a 14 because it's a little bit thicker fabric. So it looks like a beautiful piping, but what it is a rolled edge. And you can see that it's on here and on the back of the sleeves. So it just adds a really beautiful accent to your project. What's great is I didn't have to run out and buy the piping. Depending on what color thread you have it, you know, ready to go. So you can make your own piping color depending on your thread, which if you're like me, you have tons of threads. So that's never a problem. So unfortunately, you can't see how beautiful it is on the inside because it is a lined jacket, but I'm going to show you really briefly how to use piping to create, or to use rolled edge to create that piping, okay? Now another thing that I like to point out, and Evie, you're going to have to come over here because I want them to be able to see this. So can you pick up that camera without making anybody motion sick?
Hopefully. We'll find out if there's people complaining, saying they vomited everywhere.
All right, so once you can, I want you to zoom in on this piece right here. Okay, so the whole intent of a rolled edge is that the serger tightens the lower tension, pulls the upper thread over, and it actually wraps around and makes a curl in the edge of your fabric, rolling around the fabric. So as you can see here, lots of whiskers. So not something that you would like whenever you're doing your finished rolled edge. You want a nice, beautiful, and this is even with woolly nylon. So the thing that I do is I always test. So don't throw away those scraps. Always do a test. And whenever you're, if you get this type of reaction when you're doing your rolled edge, you can either use a lot of like Mary Ellen's Best Press or Terrial Magic to kind of hold the fibers together better, or you can simply press your fabric under about 1/4 of an inch and then just do the rolled edge right on the very edge of it without cutting, okay? So that will give you that same technique, and that's what I did on the jacket and what I'm going to show you with a quick little sample that we're going to sew out, okay? So let's move on over to the air thread serger, or actually I'm going to show you what I did first and then we'll get to the air thread serger. So come with me, Evie. All right. Everybody can see me okay? Let me know where you're coming from. I'd love to hear where you're all coming from. I know some people have had some people from New Zealand and other countries. It's so exciting. So this is the air thread serger, and this is what we're going to be using today. So I already prepped this, right? So here's this beautiful, can you see that okay? All right. Do you want to turn the light on behind you so we get a little bit more light? All right. So there we go. So you have this beautiful rolled edge. You can see where I folded it under about a little less than a 1/4 inch on this. It's just a scrap. So the way I did that was I turned my pre-tension lever from standard to tight. I removed my stitch finger from S, which is standard, to R for rolled edge. And I'm moving my dial to R. All right, I have a question. Go ahead. Speak it up nice and loud.
It's not really a question, but people are saying where they're coming from, like Pamela Menifee, California.
Oh, somebody from California. Okay.
Rickman, I think England.
Oh, we have somebody from England. Oh, I want to go to England so bad. Got to invite me there.
Okay. Glencoe, Minnesota.
Wonderful.
Someone's from Bolivia.
Bolivia. All right.
Sorry if I
That's all right.
things correctly.
Well, you just graduated from elementary school. I guess we got a ways to go, right, with the pronunciation of those countries. Yeah. I think they've only learned American history so far, not world history. So, all right. So I did the rolled edge on this piece of fabric, and the way I did this technique is I am sewing the two sides together, wrong sides together. I'm sewing them wrong sides together, not right sides together, which is what you would traditionally do if you are, sewing two sides together. And also of note, whenever I decide to use this technique on a garment, I always make sure the seams are straight. Unlike piping that you can kind of manipulate into a curved seam, this is not going to be as forgiving with that. So I always pick garments and projects that have straight seams. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here to the sewing machine. Now, Evie, can you get over here?
Goodness.
Sorry. Could you show how to adjust the knife again?
How to adjust the knife, or how to remove the stitch finger?
How to adjust.
Okay, so I'm going to show that after we get this done because Evie's already adjusted the camera for this. So I don't want to get people dizzy. All right, so most garment seams are 5/8 of a seam allowance, correct? So I'm going to adjust this so that this is a little less, taking into consideration how much of a fold I did. And I'm just simply going to get that under the needle. And I'm kind of sewing at an angle, so forgive me because I want to be able to get that camera, get that view in there. And I'm just going to sew my 5/8 seam allowance. Okay. Now obviously you would do this a little bit nicer if you were actually doing it on a garment versus just a scrap right here, but this is how that would look. Now you take your scissors, and you can use applique scissors or something else to get in there nice and close so you don't have to worry about accidentally catching the rest of your fabric or the other side of your seam allowance. And just simply do that. And now you would press this, but the ladies from Kimberbell introduced this lovely thing to me, and I love it for in the hoop projects. And it usually works on cotton fabrics, but I don't know if it's going to work for this. I think this is a little too thick. So you would press this, right, like that, and then you would come over here, and I usually move my needle.
Actually, it's difficult to hear you.
Uh-oh. All right, Evie, can you get that camera a little bit closer to me? So the iPad so they can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Just speak up a little bit.
All right, I'll speak up a little louder. I'm changing my needle position. Okay. And then I'm going to sew right next to that rolled edge that I just sewed, I sewed on the previous seam on my serger. And just sew down the edge of that. Now I'm not doing a beautiful job, so obviously you would do this much nicer than I'm doing on a live presentation, what I did for my jacket. All right, so they're just so close to that rolled edge, and now look at the inside. Again, don't judge me. I'm doing this sideways, but isn't that beautiful? So it's something really cool that you can add to your garments and add that, just that little extra pizzazz, that extra little something to your project that nobody else can have, and you can be one of a kind and look like a beautiful designer that you are. You're that creative person you are. All right, so now that's how I do that on garments. So we're going to move on now to the placemat. So we're going to move over again to the cutting table. Actually, let's not do that because I don't want to make people dizzy. Bruce, there's 3 pieces of fabric over there on the table. Nope, they're next to they're not on the light table. Those 3 right there. There you go, my love. All right, so to do the placemat that we're going to create today.
Can you hold it up to the camera?
Hold up the fabric?
They weren't very specific.
Okay, do you want me to hold up the sample again? I'll hold that up so you can see how that ended up looking. All right. So there's your serger piping. Okay. All right. So for the project, and again, these are in the directions that can be found on Janome Sewing Machines under the Events tab. So the fabrics that you're going to, or to make the placemats, you're going to have cut these out so that you have one that is 7 by 12. You're going to have another piece that is, my goodness, I did this so long ago, I don't remember what my measurements were. You're going to have a 7 by 10, and you're going to have one piece that's 12 by 12, so 12-inch square, okay? When you're doing this, the 12-inch square is the main piece of fabric that you're going to do the rolled edge on to add piping to your placemat. So in the case of your fabric, make sure if it's directional that you do the piping on the right side, okay? So see how this has the anchors on it? Does that show clearly? Yep. So I want to make sure I do my rolled edge right here on this edge, okay? So now we're going to come over here to the serger, to the AirThread 2000D. Okay, now when you're doing a rolled edge, and again I have my stitch finger on R from standard, okay, and I have my pre-tensioner from standard to tight, and I have my stitch length on R for rolled edge.
Somebody said can see it fine on PC, but does not work on iPad at all.
What's that?
I'm not.
Well, maybe they're having problems viewing the video.
Maybe.
So the good news is, once this is, again, if you feel like you're missing or some of it's not working well or you're not hearing, this will be recorded and you'll be able to watch it in completion on the Janome Sewing Machines page when we're all done. Okay, so with the serger, when you're doing a rolled edge, you always want to cut off a little bit of fabric, with the exception of what I said earlier with the thicker fabrics that you folded under. But with these cottons, most quilting cottons, you can cut off perfectly well and you're going to get a really beautiful rolled edge, okay? So I'm going to cut off a little, about a 1/4 inch off of that. I know that because I have this little guide right here, if you see that, and I usually can follow that, and that gives me a really good idea of what I'm going to be cutting off, okay? So we're going to give that a go, and we're going to serge this edge. You always want to just cut off a little bit with that rolled edge so that it gives the machine enough fabric to roll under. Okay? So see how beautiful that is? Does that show up nice on the camera? I got it in the right amount of height there?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So once you have that ready, then you're ready for the next step. And this is a very easy cheating way to do this, because even the pocket for this placemat, and the reason why I designed it or created this, just so you know, is we are getting to those months in the summer in New York where we want to have our picnics and our lunches, our barbecues outside, and inevitably the kids will come out with a pile of napkins and they'll put it on the table, and then the wind will come and blow them all over the place. So the reason why I created this was so that we have something that we could put our napkins and our utensils in without the wind blowing them away. So what you're going to do now is you're going to, I'll show you this, you're going to take that piece that I just did that rolled edge on, so now we're on this step out here. And can you see that okay?
Somebody said Princess, what threads do you have in the machine now?
So in the machine, I have a spool in my needle of regular sewing thread. So I have a cone of serger thread, but you could use any all-purpose sewing thread in your needle thread. And then in my two loopers, my upper and my lower looper, I have what is called woolly nylon, or another brand is called woolly poly, which I really, really love, but I just couldn't get my hands on it. So this is a woolly nylon, and it poofs out when it's all done sewing. So it fills in that rolled edge beautifully, okay? So once you have created that rolled edge on the side of your fabric, you're simply just going to layer this on top of your main piece here that's 7 by 12, just laying it on top, overlapping a little bit, and you're going to put your pocket on here, like so, okay? Now what I did with this is before I laid this on here, I did do a little top stitch, a little edge stitch around the pocket to the background fabric just to stabilize it and keep it in position. So we're going to now sew this on here, like so, okay? So now I'm going to take you back over to the sewing machine. Now, do you see why my serger is my sewing machine's best friend? It's not only my best friend, but it's my sewing machine's best friend, because I like to go back and forth between my serger and my sewing machine, because they each have their own abilities that they're able to do. So I always tell my husband when I need a new machine, I say, well, how many different tools do you have in your toolbox? And then he doesn't say anything else about my request for a new tool for my toolbox. All right. So once it's underneath of the foot, there we go. I'm just going to tighten it there a little bit. You're just going to do the same thing I did earlier with the other sample. I'm going to change my needle position to get a little bit closer to here, and then you're just going to sew down the edge. Now, in the directions that are on the on Janome's sewing machine Facebook page, I used a twin needle for this because I just wanted to give it a little pizzazz for that sample in there. I'm making 5 of these, and every one of them is going to be different because there's 5 of us in our family. We're all different, so they're all going to be different. And I think I have ADHD, and I get bored when I sew the same thing over and over again. So that's just me. All right, so we're just going to sew really close. And of course, we're going to take our needles out, our pins out. And I'm going to try to do a little better job of sewing straight on this, unlike the earlier little scrap sample I did. And the reason why I'm doing it this way on this sample versus the way I would normally do for garments is because this is going to be layered on polyfill and then backed just like you would do a quilting sample. So that's why I'm just doing it this way. Okay, so there you have that now attached to your other side of your placemat, and your pocket is right here, and it's ready to go with your napkins and your utensils and so forth. So once this is sewed on here, you're then going to layer this. So in the directions, I have it where the batting and the backing are larger than the placemat top. And the reason for that is I want to have a little bit of extra on the sides to compensate for the quilting that will be taking place on here, but also because when I'm using my narrow gauge, or my AccuFeed flex foot, I like to have that little extra fabric around the edge. So when I start sewing, when I'm doing my quilting, I'm actually I start sewing with this behind the foot a little bit, and that just helps me feed my project a little bit easier and a little bit faster, especially when I'm doing twin needle sewing, which is what I did on the sample that you see on the directions. But for this, in this case, we're just gonna, we'll just use the one needle and we'll start quilting, okay? So as you can see on here, to do a crosshatch, I use my chalk marker and I marked my 2 cross lines right here so that I could quilt this. I'm obviously not going to take the time to quilt all of this right now with you here today, just because it would take me a little bit longer and it would be like watching paint dry. So that's not exciting. We don't want to do that. So we'll move on to this one. So as you can you see that how I did my twin needle quilting on here. I did my crosshatch, and on this one I used a serpentine stitch instead of just a straight stitch because, you know, I just wanted to have that wavy effect. I like that with this lovely nautical theme fabric, and I thought that was really, really pretty.
Someone asked, do you use your jewel feed with a twin needle?
You can use your dual feed with a twin needle, absolutely, because it's awesome for quilting, which is what I did on this sample. Okay? So you can absolutely use your dual feed with a twin needle. Always do that little hand test to see where you're at with your stitch. Make sure that your twin needles aren't going to hit anywhere on your foot, but absolutely. It's a, I think sometimes we do so much more with our machines and their capabilities than they were ever intended to do, but we find ways to be creative and do a lot more than what they were designed to do. So once this is quilted, we're going to move on to the last step, and we're going to finish this, which is going to make it really easy and fast. I'm going to get a little sip of water real quick. All right, any questions coming up?
Not currently, but there is
Which
still
plate on the 9,400?
What's that?
Which plate on the 9,400?
9,400?
Yeah.
So if you're using a twin needle, always use your zigzag plate, the standard plate that comes with the machine. If you're just doing straight line quilting, you're not using a twin needle like I did on here, then you can use your, your straight stitch needle plate with a center position for your quilting. I always find if I'm just doing straight line quilting, whether it's free motion or if I'm using my AccuFeed Flex, I love to use that straight stitch plate. It just gives me a beautiful stitch, and it helps feed everything a little bit better. So you have a different tool for each application, so that's one of those tools that you use for the right application. Now, to finish up this placemat, we're going to do a quick change on the machine. So I have my handy dandy tweezers, and what we're going to do...
Someone asked, did you trim it down after the quilting?
Absolutely, good question. So in the directions it says that, but since I'm using step outs, I'm assuming things, aren't I? So yes, after you get done with all your quilting on here, then you would take your rotary cutter and your ruler, and you would trim around here. Also, you can then use your sewing machine to go ahead and just do a quick little straight stitch around the edge of this, just to anchor those layers together, especially over on the right side where there is no quilting taking place. Okay, so when you look at this sample here, you'll see that I did that. I still have my twin needle in, and I just did a quick little top stitch around the edge to anchor these pieces and secure them. Okay, so good question. Thank you for asking that. All right, so.
Someone asked, where did you find the tray sitting under the serger?
Believe it or not, it came from Japan, and it was a sample that was sent our way, and we never purchased it to merchandise for our dealers. So if it's something that you think you would like for your serger, it would work on any serger. Give me some thumbs ups. Let me know if that's something you would like, and we can definitely go back to that distributor and say, hey, a lot of people like that little, it's nice because it not only helps with vibration, because sergers do so much faster, but also it's a nice chip bin, so it catches all your scraps nicely. But that's a good question. Very observant. Oh my goodness. I got to make sure that I clean my sewing room a lot better next time, because people are going to see things I didn't think they would see on Janome Live. But anyway, I digress. So what we're going to do, because on the edge of this, for the sample, I'm not doing a rolled edge. I just want to do a three thread overcast stitch, a decorative overcast stitch that's going to go on the edge and frame this nicely. It's a nice stable stitch, and it's going to give it, again, that pop of color, that pop of contrast. I mean, obviously you could do a traditional binding on here, or before you attach this to the back, you could do an envelope back. But for this class, we're going to go ahead and just do a serger edge.
Somebody asked, how many layers of wadding do you use, please?
So in this particular one, as you can see, it's not real thick. So Bruce, wadding is a term they use, I think, in Britain, and in America we say batting. So this is just a very thin fleece batting. Down. Sorry. A fleece batting that I had in my closet, because as you know, we're on quarantine still here in New York. Stores are finally starting to open up. So I used what I had in my stash. Thank goodness for that stash. So this was just a thin 1-layer piece of a craft fleece, actually, that I use for the inside. So I wouldn't go too thick, just because it's a placemat, and you're gonna have your plates and things resting on here, and you don't want it to be wibbly wobbly. You just want to have something that's gonna look beautiful on your outdoor picnic tables, and this will, be able to hold your napkins and your utensils without worrying about them flying away. Okay, so
A lot of people like that tray.
they like that tray. All right. I'll let Mr. Yamamoto, who used to be our president, he was the one who first gave, so it kind of wandered home with me. I don't know why we didn't order them for you. So shame on me for hoarding this wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, so in order to go from this narrow rolled edge to a nice wide edge on this, what we're going to do is we're just simply going to change our needle from its right position to its left position. Now, the one thing I always recommend to people is when you're changing your needle or taking a needle out of a serger, don't unthread it first, okay? Keep the thread in, and the reason why is it makes it easier to hold on to, prevents you from dropping it down in the mechanism, and so it just kind of holds it in place for you until you're ready.
That was already a question.
Oh, you already got it? All right, so I unthread, I move it, and I move it over to the next position, use my handy dandy tweezers, and then I fasten it back into place. A couple of little turns of the screw, and you loosen both and you tighten both. It's a tight little mechanism in there, and you don't want to get surging so fast that your little screw comes rotating out due to the vibration. So make sure you always tighten those down. Tighten down the hatches before you start sewing again, okay? Now I do have to rethread because I'm in my right needle position. So I'm just going to move that needle over, or that thread over. And so I'm just going to serge that out. Okay, so I'm back to just my woolly nylon now.
Somebody asked, are you using an 11 or 14 needle?
So I'm using a size 11 for this project just because it's quilting cotton. Okay. So now, somebody asked earlier about the needle. So just right here, it says use only the HA-1SP needle, size 11 or size 14. What I can do is I can look up an actual part number for you later on after this broadcast, and I can go on there and I can find the part. I'll contact somebody at our office. I'll find the part number for you and answer that question for you, so you know exactly what to order.
Someone also asked, move the right side needle to the left side position?
Yes, we're moving the needle from the right position, needle position, to the left side position because we're not doing a rolled edge anymore. We're going to do something different, okay? So once we have the needle over into the left position, we're going to bring that little needle threader, pop it over. I'm going to bring that needle threader down, use my handy dandy tweezers because I love my tweezers, and bring that up, and it threads it for me. Bam, boom, bing, fasty fast. All right. And bring that back under your foot, get it clear from the mechanism, and then we're going to put our foot down and sew our chain again. Now, because I'm doing a wider overcast, I'm now going to take my pre-tensioner from tight back to standard. I'm going to put my foot up, raise my needle so that's all clear from the mechanism, and I'm going to move that stitch finger back to standard because I don't want to roll. I don't want to roll my edge this time. Now, I'm going to keep this on R for rolled edge, my stitch length, because I want it filled in. I want a really pretty edge to my placemat, so it's going to have a nice pop of color and it's going to really stand out. So, when I start my edge, I'm going to move that over a little bit so hopefully you can see really nice, okay? When I start my edge on my placemat,
Someone asked, is the right needle, if the right and needle use the same thread path, which it seems they do, you should just be able to move the needle over.
You know, you would think so, but you always want to just go ahead and make sure you're in the right path, in the right one you're using. Just because you know, sometimes even a thread can pop out. It'll be caught from here to here, but pop out just because of vibration of the machine. So I always say, go ahead and put it in the right one that's supposed to be. Also, just because when you're doing something, you don't lose track of what you're doing.
I didn't finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And move the thread over without unthreading.
I guess you could do that, but you know what? I like my needle threader, so whatever works for you. There's no rules. It's what works for you. How does that sound? All right. When I start sewing on this edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a couple of stitches in, get my needle on there. I'm going to lift up my foot, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a yank from behind to clear the thread from the mechanism, and I'm going to bring it around and catch it in my upcoming seam, okay? And then I'm just going to serge. Okay? If you have high contrast between your thread and your fabric, you can even tighten your stitch length a little bit more if you desire. When you get to the end, I sew one stitch off the fabric, lift up my foot, I push the fabric just a little bit back, okay, bring it back around, put it right in front of the needle again, where the needle is right on the tip, and before I put my foot down, I like to just grab my threads above and just give a little pull so there's no extra loose thread around here. So it gives it just a little bit of a cleaner corner. Okay, and then you start again.
Someone asked, do you have the cutter off?
I don't have the cutter off. I'm not a big fan when I'm teaching serger use. I very rarely teach people to turn the cutter off because if they forget, it's very easy to get fabric caught in your loopers, and your damage to your loopers would be more expensive than accidentally cutting some fabric, right? So I'm not a big fan of it, unless you're really advanced.
Someone else asked, when changing thread colors for the loopers, do we tie off like a regular serger? If not, how do we remove the existing looper thread?
So, you know, a lot of people love the tie-on method. You can definitely do the tie-on method. When I added earlier today the woolly nylon, I had regular sewing thread in my loopers. I did tie my woolly nylon onto my regular thread, and I just pulled it on through. Make sure your presser foot is up when you do that, so that releases the tension, and it'll make it easy for those to go through. If your foot's down, your tension's engaged, you're just going to break that little knot. You just tied those two together. But as a general rule, if you are having problems with your serged seam, if your stitch doesn't look right, if something is not looking like it should, or you hear a sound, something's just not right, then by all means, unthread your machine, start from scratch. Sometimes those cheating methods can cause problems you're not aware of happening. It misses tensions, it misses a looper. You don't know. So in the case of something not being right, your stitch isn't looking really pretty, it's not lining up right, then unthread and just start from scratch. If you have an air thread serger, that is not in any way, shape, or form scary because it's just going to the thread for you, and then it's not an issue. Okay? I'm going to keep sewing. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. My director has told me to commence. All right? I'm going to get up here to this loop. Right over that little hump where my previous rolled edge piping is. And you're just going to do the same thing. Come to the edge, one stitch off, needle up, foot up, tiny little tug to the back.
What setting are your numbers?
So my tensions, I have mine set at the factory setting, which is 3 all the way across. Okay? I find, unless I'm doing specialty techniques like flat locking, anything like that, I really don't play with my tensions. Or if you're using a really interesting decorative thread, something that has metallic in it or something like that. For the most part, I keep my tensions at 3 because of 2 reasons. I have my pre-tensioner. So if I need to tighten my my lower looper to bring my upper thread over, I use my pre-tensioner, and it automatically does that for me. So for the most part, I just keep my tensions at 3. Okay? All right, we're going to keep going. I'm going to get this done. you can see the finished placemat. Bruce Jr. has told me that when this class is over today, he wants me to help him do the other placemats that are in, midst of the different levels of being done, because I needed those step outs for the class. So he's asked if he can help me finish them. And I said, oh my goodness, by all means, yes, because that would be great to have 5 placemats done. And we'll have them ready for summer and for all of our barbecues. And as you know, I love having children learn how to sew, because it is definitely a wonderful survivor skill. I think if COVID-19 has taught us nothing else, it is that sewing is a survivor skill. All right. Yes, question.
If you didn't put your blade down, how come it's not cutting your fabric when you sew?
I am actually just barely on the edge of my needle plate, and so I know where my blade is, so I know where that is. If you zoom in really, really close, I don't know if you can zoom in down here, you're going to see just a little bit of fuzz, a little bit of lint in here. So I am getting a little bit of just nicking a little bit of any of the extra fleece or fabric that just kind of I nicked it. So I'm just using, there's guides on the needle plate that help me know where that blade is, and I'm keeping my fabric lined up with those guides, and that's going to help me also, okay? Now, when you get to the end of your placemat, what you can do, there's 2 different things you can do. You can come down to the end, and I'm going to sew to the edge here, all right? You can come down to the edge, and you can do a technique where you lift up your needle, you lift up your foot, and you bring the fabric and you flip it, and you sew back on itself. I'm not a fan of that for this particular technique because it's a little bulky and it's a little messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just serge off my edge a little bit, and I'm going to keep my chain on here. And what you then do is you take a large-eyed needle, a darning needle, and I just made a really big mistake. You should make this thread a lot longer. So you want something that's at least 6 inches longer. And then you would thread this through a double-eyed needle or a large-eyed needle. And then you can just take that and feed that needle through the back of this and bring it through. And then it'll be really beautiful and you won't see it. Then you can take an extra step if you really want, and then you can put some fray check on here, and that'll really stabilize the edge of that. And you can wash it, you can use it over and over again, and it's going to keep it nice and secure. All right? So here is your placemat, all done. So as you see, it's a combination of your sewing machine, your embroidery machine, sewing machine, your serger, and you're able to make those 2 work together perfectly together to create a project that you can be really proud of, and jazz up your outside furniture for the summertime. I don't have a utensil or a napkin, so we'll just put that there for right now. There you go. How's that look?
The person who said great job with the camera, Bruce, it's not me who's doing it, it's my sister.
Oh, so
she's
so
really good at this.
Bruce wanted everybody to know that it's Evie who's doing the camera work, so he doesn't want to take credit where credit's not due. All right. So we are all done with that placemat. I think we're doing good on time because we do have a 3 o'clock with Mitzi Red. So you want to come on over there, baby, and we'll close off. We'll just do a little housekeeping. We'll talk about what's coming up. And that way, you want me to don't do a zoom in, my goodness. I haven't had makeup on in ages. We don't want to do a zoom in, my goodness. So if you are interested in getting a serger, if you did not do a thumbs up earlier and you love seeing what the serger can do for you, the Sunshine and Savings, say that 3 times fast, Sunshine and Savings promo that's going on right now, that is good through the end of June, so June 31st, right, that will end. So the AirThread serger is part of that promotion. You can buy your serger from a local authorized Janome dealer. You can send in your form. There's a form for that, a rebate form that you can send to us digitally, and then we're going to send you a digital card that you can use for like Home Depot. So if you like to do gardening, if you're doing any kind of upkeep around the house, you're going to get a free Home Depot gift card with the purchase of the AirThread Serger 2000. So definitely get on that if you're interested in the serger, especially because it's so easy to use. As you saw, not a lot of fiddling, not playing with your tensions. Just get on there and sew and enjoy yourself, which is what a sewing machine should do for you. At 3 o'clock, like I mentioned earlier, Mitzi Red is going to be on. She's going to be doing free motion techniques, quilting techniques. So as soon as I'm off air, go get yourself a drink, get a snack, go to the bathroom, come back for 3 o'clock for Mitzi Red, because she's just amazing and she's so creative, and I know she's going to teach you a lot of really great tips.
Someone asked, where do you get sunshine and saving coupon?
So the Sunshine and Savings rebate form, if you go onto Janome.com, there is a banner. If you click on that page, there is the rebate form on that page. So you just scroll down and you'll find it. You can fill that out digitally and you can send it in to us. All right?
Someone also asked, is this available in Canada?
This is the Sunshine Savings promotion right now is in the United States. I need to always remember to be clear on that, especially since my son told me so many people were watching from other places in the world. But the Air Thread Serger, the AT2000D, is available in Canada. It's available in most of the other subsidiaries or distributors for Janome. So definitely go find your local Janome dealer or distributor and see what kind of promotions they have for the Air Thread Serger. It's a fabulous machine, and I'm sure they can help you out with that. Okay?
Someone asked, could you explain about the standard tight tension again?
So the Air Thread 2000D has what's called a pre-tensioner level. So when you're doing most standard sewing, you just leave it on standard. And whenever you're doing any kind of a technique where you need to tighten your lower looper, so like a rolled edge, so it can bring your upper looper thread around, so it's grabbing it and it's bringing it over, you would just put it onto tight and it automatically sets the tension for you. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what the perfect lower looper tension is for that rolled edge. So that's what that little guy is. It's an amazing little tool. Okay? All right. So, Sunshine and Savings. Please check out your local dealer. Even if you're not in the market for a serger right now, please visit your local dealer. They're opening up right now. Like I said earlier, if we've learned nothing else from this pandemic, sewing is essential. Our local businesses, our dealers are essential. So get out there, even if it's to go buy a spool of thread or just to say hi and say, hey, thank you for being here for us. I know a lot of dealers went to state legislatures to say we need to stay open because we are an essential business. People need sewing machines. They need fabric for making masks. So go support your dealers, because I always say, buy local, otherwise buy local. So we don't want that. We want our mom and pops, and some of these stores are like second, third generation. So that's amazing. So we need to support that. Upcoming events on this same Janome Sewing Machines page. For those of you who have joined Kimberly Einmo's Block of the Month Blitz, I know I have. It's amazing. She's going to be doing her next class, the second installment, on June 20th. So this Saturday, she'll be doing that. Oops, sorry, there's a question. What's the question?
Are these videos available on the Janome.com site?
They're not on the Janome.com site. They are on the Facebook page. The one you're on, Janome Sewing Machines Facebook page, you just go into videos and you'll find them there. All of the videos we've been doing for these lives, that's where you'll find them. We're also in the midst of trying to convert these for YouTube. We're just having a little trouble finding a software that allow us to do it cleanly without it being too fuzzy. The Facebook likes to compress them, and I don't know, it's gibberish. I don't understand it, but our marketing people do. So they're working on trying to figure out a way to convert these videos from Facebook to YouTube, so they'll also be there for you. Okay? June 24th, Alba, she's going to be doing a basics machine class. She's going to go back to basics. So for all of those of you who are watching who might have machines that are a little bit more entry level, she's going to cover some of those machines for you. A lot of people have been asking for that. They're not seeing their machines on these lives. Unfortunately, because we're doing these from our own homes and we are working for Janome, we kind of have access to higher end machines. So she's going to go into the office, grab some of our entry level or mid level, and she's going to do a class on basics on those. So we don't want anybody to feel excluded. We want everybody to feel welcome into our sewing classroom page. And then last, July 11th, Kimberly will be doing her third installment of the Block of the Month Blitz. So mark those into 3 things on your calendar. Okay? All right, well, that is it for me. If there's no other questions, my dear one, no? All right, I hope you enjoyed yourself. This was my first live. I was a little nervous. So thank you for being so patient with me. Thank you for being so kind with all the hearts and the thumbs ups. We always appreciate that. We all need, to be told we're doing a good job. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for joining us, and don't forget, come back at 3 o'clock for the Janome Sewing Machines page for Mitzi Red. You don't want to miss it. All right, take care.
Bye. Say
Bye.
bye, Bruce.